This video is sponsored by NordVPN, the world's best VPN to help maximize your online protection. What a VPN pretty much does is it hides your location, gives you privacy and security online, which can also help you visit websites whenever and wherever you want. And especially good when you're traveling because a lot of times the free Wi-Fi hotspots at airports and such can be somewhat insecure. Or not just airports, if you're going to school, if you're going to college, oftentimes these free Wi-Fi spaces can be somewhat insecure, and NordVPN will have you covered. So if you're traveling, watching the fights or something, NordVPN can really help you with protecting yourself while watching the fights. As we all know, when these fights are on, we do not want to be bothered by anything. It can also help your connection as well. Or if you want to join some kind of social media that's banned in certain countries if you're traveling, NordVPN can help you access those whenever you want. And not only that, you can also catch up on your favorite movies and your favorite shows that are specifically only in other countries. With NordVPN, you're going to be able to access those as well. And while doing all of this, it can also increase your broadband speed, avoiding any kind of internet slowdown. And just in case you want more security, you can also double encrypt yourself with a second VPN server, which is pretty much going to give you complete privacy. So in order to secure yourself, make sure to go to nordvpn.com/theweasel to get a 2-year plan with an exclusive deal plus 4 bonus months free. This is going to be risk-free with VPN's 30-day money-back guarantee. Again, visit nordvpn.com/theweasel. That was a better fight than I expected. Jake Paul defeats Anderson Silva by a decision, and he looks better than ever. Beat an actual striker, although Silva is 47 years old and definitely showed his age in the fight. All credit to Jake Paul, not only for his performance, he found great body shots in the fight, which was a big thing for him. The most effective thing for him the whole fight were the body shots. He also showed to have a great chin. He took some big punches from Anderson Silva, who seemingly was bigger than Jake, and also someone who is known for their knockout ability. He also showed great endurance. Very well conditioned going into the fight. Looked fresher than Anderson in that last round. Jake definitely deserves a lot of respect after this performance, and I'm happy to see him adjust in the fight, actually use technique and strategy throughout the whole thing to even change up some things he was doing. He showed better fight IQ in the fight. He lasted longer than a lot of people would have expected, fighting at that kind of pace, and showed that his power is always alive, even in the 8th round. So all credit to Jake Paul, but we also do have to point out some of the things about Anderson Silva. There are definitely a lot of different things about Anderson Silva here. Not only starting to gas out in the later rounds, which is something very uncharacteristic about Anderson. The guy never used to gas out in fights, but also his legendary countering ability is completely out the window. I mean, Jake was coming in with these huge punches, huge overhands, hooks, and everything. Wide open to counters before he throws and after he throws. 90% of the time, Anderson never took the opportunity for those counters. The only success he ever had in the fight was when he was pressuring forward, and that's completely against the prime Anderson Silva we're used to. Anderson in his prime used to be a counter striker and never really wanted to be the offensive guy going forward unless he already frustrated you enough, countered you enough, beat you down enough where you expose openings for him to snipe his way through. But in this fight with Jake Paul, there was a lot of telegraph punches from both sides that it looked like a Rocky movie. And although it was pretty fun to watch, it was crazy with the amount of times they wanted to take each other's head off with every punch. There was a clear difference in footwork ability. Anderson still moves very well, shown in moments where like Jake Paul was throwing a body jab and Anderson avoided it by taking the outside foot step and angling off, chasing Jake on that same angle all the way back almost to the ropes. And Jake Paul's footwork still shows to be his biggest weakness in fights. Crossing his feet, doesn't know how to really get away from the ropes other than use the clinch, and Anderson actually negated a bunch of the clinching simply because of his MMA background. There was even a moment in the fight where Jake was against the ropes, Anderson was doing a very good job of crowding him, trapping him against it, keeping him there, and Jake would only move in one direction. Jake is not a guy who has omnidirectional footwork. He doesn't move in many different angles. He would usually just move straight back in a line and then move either left or right, and only that direction. So it was kind of easy for someone like Silva to keep him on the ropes. So in this moment, when Jake wanted to get the clinch, Anderson got a single collar on him. Almost a Muay Thai plum. I knew he wanted to get the Thai clinch, and even with just a single collar, Jake didn't know how to grab his arms. And that was why Jake was not able to get the clinch, and Anderson kept him on the ropes. And unfortunately, whenever Anderson got this amazing position on Jake Paul, he would force these big punches I've never seen him throw before. I'm never used to seeing Anderson Silva wind up big haymakers to hit his opponent with, instead of those sniper-like straights on the back foot or the devastating jabs that he would establish on his opponents. These windmill punches that he was throwing were very uncharacteristic and strange to watch, and it was a big reason as to how Jake Paul was able to get away from these disadvantaged positions, and ultimately caused big clinching openings for Jake to get out of these disadvantaged positions. But even after some of these big punches from Silva, you still saw the footwork of Jake Paul, constantly crossing his feet, doesn't really know which angle to take sometimes, he doesn't keep his eyes on his opponent, and simply just turtles up in front of them, hoping for the moment he could find that opportunity to clinch. And this was a continuous rhythm throughout the whole fight. Anderson did a very good job of pressuring Jake against the ropes. All he really had to do was just pester out some jabs, spam a little bit of half jabs out there, not even fully extended or to hurt Jake or anything. The jab alone caused Jake to move backwards, and that's something he really needs to address in the future, because if simply half jabs are going to make him move back so much, it's going to be horrible if he fights a professional boxer or something. After Anderson Silva, he's going to have to step up in competition, right? If he fights even Nate Diaz is much younger than Silva. He's probably going to be a better boxer than Silva in that kind of fight. Or if he wants to go up against, hopefully not for his sake, if he wants to go up against someone like Canelo, the holes that he exposed against Silva are going to be absolutely blasted right through and demolished by someone like Canelo. Yeah, but after the pressure, what would Anderson do? Wind up some big left hand, trying to knock Jake out, misses because of the huge telegraph. Jake was easily able to see it coming, and then Jake would clinch up. After the ref comes in there and breaks the fight up, then what do you see happen there? Jake is able to land some good shots, specifically off of his own body punches. From the body punches, Anderson Silva would try to get back at him, pressure him back again with these jabs, and do it all over again. And honestly, the biggest success that Silva had the whole fight were the uppercuts from the clinch or just in the pocket. Jake has a very big tendency of ducking his head whenever he feels he's in danger, and that can be whether he's in the clinch, where he definitely seems very uncomfortable there, or when he's throwing a telegraphed huge right hand, and then he feels like he's in danger, so he ducks his way out of position, out of range. So these uppercuts were a big success on Silva's part, and really not much else. Silva landed some good shots in the middle of crazy exchanges and stuff, but most of his success, most of the patterns that he found in the fight were from his uppercuts. I have to give Jake Paul a lot of credit because he found something against Silva that he went to repeatedly throughout the whole fight, and it was working for him. Silva does not block punches to the body, and he's very easily conditioned after getting hit to the body, specifically in boxing terms. So Jake Paul was able to just simply throw jabs to the body or even a right cross, and he could just land the punch by itself, cause some damage there. Silva never defended body punches, and then later in the fight, he adjusted to his own success and started to land combinations after body punches. I mean, in fact, Jake Paul knocked Anderson down in that 8th round after he set up his combination by throwing a punch to the body. So he fakes up high with his jab. Anderson covers up because of it. Jake throws a right hook to the body, but is just only using this to set up his combination. And look at Silva's posture. He ducks down, lowers his guard. Jake's footwork does definitely need some work here, as he's pivoting with the left hook instead of actually moving both of his feet or even his front foot into the left hook to actually generate a lot more power. A basic fundamental thing you should know about punching is that a lot of the power generated for your left hand, if you're orthodox, is off of your lead foot. The back foot generally generates a lot more power for your right hand. So him moving his right foot, keeping his left foot planted and throwing a left hand, it's not going to generate the same kind of power he could have if he actually moved his left foot or both of them, but ultimately carries his combination further. Anderson's eyes are off of Jake after that left hook, and Jake puts the jab right overhand on Silva's chin. And Silva was actually the fighter that got out of position. And this is something to note because the later the fight went, the more Silva lost composure in the fight and looked a lot more desperate, as well as looked a lot more tired. He knew he was losing rounds, he knew he needed to make something happen, and he got very offensive, especially in that 8th round. It even got to the point where he was being so aggressive against Jake, just hammering punches in the clinch, trying to get in there, and Jake even moving out in that same path, just moving left or just moving right. Anderson actually didn't cut off the ring that time, which was very telling in how the fight was unfolding. And if Anderson's going to lose composure and lose position, it can be very dangerous for him, especially against someone like Jake Paul, who is a lot younger, who is better conditioned, who has one-punch knockout power. So notice how Silva in this exchange is parallel with his stance. His feet are side to side with each other. There's no defense here. Because there's no defense, he's focusing on offense, trying to land his own right straight. Now Silva missed and Jake landed. Silva never got his head off the center line when he did this, where Jake did. And Jake actually has a proper stance here. Anderson did not. So as Jake threw his right overhand, he was able to move his head with his own punch, get his head on the outside of Anderson's right straight, and put him down. And it was a great thing to see from Jake Paul. You have to give him credit for establishing these combinations off of body punches. And honestly, that was the majority of Jake's success in the fight. The majority of his success was from the body punches. Everything else, I don't want to get too critical because this could be like a 2-hour video. And we have to really understand of what level Jake Paul is fighting at against Anderson specifically. If he's fighting Canelo, then it's a whole different story. But Anderson Silva is not like a true professional boxer in their prime, you know? So you can't look at the fight as such. Like, I don't want to get into details of how telegraphed Jake Paul's punches were. All of his setups, spamming half jabs out there, lowering his right hand whenever he did it when he wants to throw his right. It was very obvious. In the center of the ring, he would literally rush forward like a bull and throw big hooks and stuff like that, and it showed his footwork disadvantage in the fight because whenever he did that, he got his back to the ropes. So he would actually have a good position in front of Silva, and then once he charged forward with this big hook, Anderson was easily able to see it coming from a mile away, even at his age, duck under the punch, and now Jake by himself got his own back to the ropes or even the corner. And all Silva had to do was just like follow up. That's it. Jake did like 75% of the work for him. And Jake actually found some openings off of simply his jab, and he started to see how much Anderson was using his head movement. Anderson made a big mistake against Jake of using too big of head movements against small attacks. This is something you see a lot of MMA fighters do because the majority of the danger in MMA is actually these big attacks, big right hands, big kicks, knees, elbows, and you generally want to move your head rapidly at times because also you don't have big gloves, so you get used to this kind of big head movement. In boxing, it's a little bit different, right? Everything's a lot more compact, everything's a lot more tight, so you don't need big head movements all the time unless you are a master of boxing like Lomachenko or something. Most of the boxers don't need this, especially when they see jabs coming their way. So Jake, spamming some jabs out there, targeting Anderson's head, but not generally looking to hurt him with these. He's looking for his big right hand as usual, right? And even if it was telegraphed, Anderson's big head movement would cause him to get stuck in position and ultimately get hit by Jake Paul's big right hand. And it shows Silva's chin to be able to take some of these big shots. And it's amazing to see from Jake Paul himself that he's able to come up with strategies. He's able to put together these combinations and adjust in the fight and all of that, because most boxers at his age, for the amount of years they've been training, would not be able to get this down so quickly. I see a lot of people talking bad about Jake, about his skills in this fight, his footwork specifically. But if we're going to be fair to him, he's only, 6-0? He's only been training for like, give or take 4 years, I think. He's only been competing for like 3. Where most boxers, by the time they're 25 years old, have been in the game for like 20 years, right? They've been boxing for such a long time. They have so many fights, amateur and professional. Jake has yet to fight an actual professional boxer. Anderson's the closest to that because he actually did beat a professional boxer. But a pro boxer in their prime is an opponent that Jake has not fought yet. And I'm not saying he's not real or I don't respect him until he does that. I give Jake all the respect in the world for what he's doing right now because he's much better than someone his age with his experience should be.